Okay, so in today's session, we will discuss about transformers. What is a transformer? Then about the working principle of transformer, construction of transformer, then the difference between ideal transformer and actual transformer, etc. So starting with what is a transformer exactly, how you can define a transformer. It is also a machine, but this is an AC machine. Okay, so transformer is an AC machine. So what is the purpose of using this transformer? It transfers electrical energy from one electric circuit to another, which means unlike the motor and generator, which convert either mechanical power to electrical power or vice versa, transformers are not energy conversion devices. They are energy transfer devices. Okay, and how does it transfer the electrical power? Without any change of frequency. That means frequency at the input as well as the output will be the same. Now, when you talk about the working principle, it is transformer is also based on the same principle, that is the principle of electromagnetic induction, Faraday's laws of electromagnetic induction. So what is this electromagnetic induction? That is, an EMF will be induced whenever there is a change in the flux. But in the case of transformers, it is a stationary machine. So here you call the EMF, or you categorize the EMF as statically induced EMF. Okay. Now here, this transformer electrical circuits are linked by a common magnetic circuit. As you know, transformer consists of a primary circuit and a secondary circuit, and both these are coupled using a magnetic medium. Okay. Now moving further into the type of transformers, we can classify basically the transformers into two types. One is step-up transformer and the other one is a step-down transformer. So what is this step-up transformer? In the case of step-up transformer, from the name itself, you can understand that it is used for stepping up the voltage. That means output voltage will be higher than the input voltage. Then how do you do that? By increasing the number of turns. Okay, because in transformer there are two windings, primary and secondary, and by increasing the number of turns, you can increase the voltage. Now next is step-down transformer. So what is the purpose of using step-down transformer? That is when you need an output voltage lesser than the lower than the input voltage, then you can use a step-down transformer. Okay. Now, we call the transformer as a static transformer. Why? Because first thing, it doesn't have any moving parts. If you see the DC generator or DC motor, you know the armature is a rotating part and there you have the bearings. That is a rotate, so many rotating parts are there. Whereas in the case of a transformer, there is no rotating part. Okay, so as I told before, the EMF induction, EMF induced is by like by Faraday's laws of electromagnetic induction, but you call it as statically induced EMF. That is, without any moving part, by changing the flux, you can induce the EMF. Okay. Now this requires minimum maintenance, this transformers, because there is no rotating parts. Okay, then moving on to the losses. Now since there are no rotating parts, the friction or windage losses can be neglected, or it is not there. No friction or windage losses because there is no moving parts. Then the efficiency. The efficiency of the transformer will be high. Obviously, when the losses are very less, then the efficiency will be high. Okay. Now again, insulating the transformer. There are different methods which can be used for insulating the transformers. Okay. And efficiency you can get up to 96 to 97% efficiency. So when comparing with the DC generators and DC motors, in transformers you can get very high efficiencies. The reason is there are no moving parts and thereby the losses are reduced. Okay. Now let's move on to the physical structure of a transformer. That is, how does a transformer look like? So this is the diagram. Here you can see primary winding. On the input side, I have written as primary winding, and on the output side, it is a secondary winding. Okay. Now the primary winding, it will consist of say N1 number of turns, and let N2 be the number of turns in the secondary. Okay. Now here you can see the flux phi. This is called the mutual flux. So this is the flux which is linking both the primary as well as a secondary winding. What about the core? What it is made of? The core of the transformer is made of soft iron or silicon steel. Okay, so this is the core. The core is made up of silicon steel or soft iron core. Then again you can see that the windings are insulated from both the core and from each other. So in the diagram it looks like it is very closely attached to the core, but there is an insulation between the windings and the core. Okay. The next point already I explained, that is the core is made up of soft iron or silicon steel. Okay, so this material is used because it will offer very low reluctance to the magnetic flux. That means the resistance or the reluctance to the flux is reduced. Okay, so that you will be able to generate more flux. Then a very important point about transformer is that here also there are losses in the transformer. Okay, fine. There is, due to these rotating parts, there will not be any losses, but there are iron losses or core losses, and in that comes hysteresis loss and eddy current loss. Now, in order to reduce the eddy current loss, you can see here the core is actually made up of thin sheets or thin laminations. Here you can see here. So, what is the purpose of this? Why you are using laminated sheets in the core of a transformer? The reason is to reduce the eddy current. So if you see the equation for the eddy current loss, you can see that it is proportional to T square, where T is the thickness of the core. So thereby reducing the thickness, we can reduce the eddy current loss. That is why it is made up of thin laminations. Okay. Now the winding which is connected to the supply mains is called the primary, and the winding to which the load circuit is connected is called the secondary. So this winding, here we give the supply voltage, that will be an AC. I can write it as V1. Okay. And this is the output where you will connect the load. Okay. So like that you can say that this is the primary and the secondary winding. Also there is another classification for the windings. You can call it as low voltage or high voltage winding. That is a winding which is connected to the higher voltage. So if I am saying that the voltage of a transformer is given as 220 slash 2200, then it means this is a step up transformer because the output is more than the input. So you can say that the secondary is this is the secondary and this is the primary. So here I can say that the secondary is the high voltage side. So like that also you can classify the winding based on the type of the voltage, whether it is high voltage or low voltage. Okay. Then another very important point related to transformers is why transformers should never be connected to DC. So this is basically an AC machine. So what will happen if you connect it, that is the primary is connected to a DC. So you know this, that is the EMF induced in a transformer is depending on the rate of change of flux, d phi by dt. Okay, so when you are providing a DC input, there will not be any change in the flux. If no change in the flux means the EMF induced will be 0. Okay, so what will happen to the primary winding? Whatever voltage you are applying V1, it will be applied across the primary winding, and there will not be any EMF to oppose this applied voltage, which means a very high current will flow through the primary winding and it may result in the burning out of primary. So the role of the induced EMF in the case of transformer is same like that of back EMF in the case of motor. That is, it will oppose the applied voltage, thereby controlling the current. That is why we say that transformers should never be connected to DC. Okay. Okay. Now let's move on to the working principle of a transformer. How does a transformer work? Okay. So this already we know that it is actually an energy transferring device. Okay. It will transfer energy from or power from primary to secondary by means of a changing flux. Okay. Now when the first thing what we are doing, you are connecting or the primary winding is connected to an AC supply. That means you are giving an input voltage. If you see here, we are giving an input voltage V1 to the primary. Then what will happen? Obviously a current will flow, right? And this current which is flowing through the primary winding, it will produce a flux phi. Now what does this flux do? This flux, what it will do is, it is a changing flux, okay, and it will link with the secondary winding, and thereby an EMF is induced in it, and this EMF will cause a current to flow through the load. So this is the basic working principle of a transformer. So using this diagram I will explain. That is, when you are giving a voltage V1, okay, a current will flow in the primary, through the primary winding, a current will flow. So here the direction is like this. So a current will flow. When the current flows, what will happen? A flux will be created, right? And this is an alternating flux because we are providing an AC as the input. So this alternating flux, it will link both the primary winding as well as the secondary winding. So since this change in flux is linking the secondary winding, this is the secondary winding, what will happen? An EMF will be induced in the secondary winding. So when EMF induced, what is the next step? When EMF it is induced, automatically the current will start flowing through the secondary. That means if you connect a load here, okay, a power, this load will get the power due to the flow of this current through the secondary winding. So this is a basic working principle of transformer. Okay. Now the another thing is that the frequency, that is whatever is the frequency of the induced EMF in the primary, it will be same as that in the secondary, and this will be equal to the frequency of the supplied voltage. So for AC voltage, the frequency we can take it as 50 to 60 Hertz. Normally we take it as 50 Hertz. Okay. Now when I talked about the alternating flux, due to this alternating flux, an EMF will be induced in the secondary. Now what about the primary? That is the flux which is produced due to the how this flux phi is produced due to flow of current in the primary winding. Now this flux phi, it links not only the secondary winding, right? It will link also the primary winding. That means an EMF will be induced in the primary winding also. And this EMF, you call it as a self-induced EMF because this EMF is induced due to the flux generated by the current flowing through the primary winding. Whereas when it links, that is the flux produced by the primary winding, when it links a secondary, you call it as what? Not that self-induced EMF, but mutually induced EMF. Okay. So now the induced EMF in the primary, what it will do? It will limit the current. How? By opposing the applied voltage. Thereby you can control the current. Okay. Now moving further, let's see how to derive the EMF equation of a transformer. That is also very important. So here let's consider that you are applying alternating voltage V1, okay, and the frequency F. You are giving it to the primary of a transformer. So this is the circuit diagram. V1 is the input voltage, I1 is the input current, okay, E1 is the induced EMF in the primary, and here you can see the flux. This flux, it is a mutual flux which will link both the primary as well as the secondary, okay, and also due to this flux there will be EMF induced in the primary as well as the secondary. So the EMF which is induced in the primary is taken as E1 and the EMF which is induced in the secondary is taken as E2. N1 and N2 you know, that is the number of turns in the primary and the number of turns in the secondary. Now another very important thing here, you can see a dot here, which means the current is entering at this point. Okay, and again you can see a dot here, that means current is leaving at this point. It is based on how you arrange the winding. If a dot is coming here, that means current will be entering from this point. Okay, now V2 is the voltage, terminal voltage across the load. So this is the load. I have represented it by ZL, or you can write it as Z2. Okay, so a current I2 will flow through the load. Okay, now moving further, now let's see how this EMF induced and the flux are related. So the flux phi can be represented by the equation. It is a sine wave. It is a sinusoidal quantity, alternating, changing quantity. So whenever there is a change in quantity, that is alternating means what? Changing the polarity. That is, first it is positive, then it is negative. So I can represent the equation of the flux as phi is equal to phi m sin omega t. Just see here. So along the x-axis I am taken the time omega t, and along the y-axis I have taken the magnitude of the flux. So now suppose if omega t is equal to 0, what is sine 0? 0. So I will get this point. And suppose if I am taking omega t is equal to 90, what will be the flux? Flux will be having the maximum value at this point, right? So now if I take omega t is equal to 180, sine 180 is 0, right? So again I will get this point. and this will continue in the other side. So this is how you are getting, that is how you are getting alternating flux, that is it can be represented using this equation. Okay, now we will see how this EMF, induced EMF, that is E1 and E2, how you can relate this induced EMF with the flux. Okay, that is what we are going to see next. Now the instantaneous value of the EMF is given by this particular equation. Let small e1 be the induced EMF in the primary, and N1 be the number of turns in the primary, and d phi by dt is the change of flux. Here you can see I have put one minus sign. What is the reason for that? Whenever there is a reaction, it will oppose the cause. So here what is the result? Induced EMF. What is the cause? Change in the flux. That means the induced EMF will be opposing the rate of change of flux. That is why I am writing E is equal to minus N1 into d phi by dt. So here this is the induced EMF in the primary. Okay. Now I will substitute for phi. So what is phi? Phi m sin omega t. Phi m sin omega t. So now I am going to differentiate phi m sin omega t. So phi m is a constant, so I can take it outside. So what is d by dt of sin omega t? If you take d by dt of sin omega t, you will get what? Omega into cos omega t. So I am replacing that omega into, so you have to go through this differential equations, omega cos omega t. So I have substituted that. So now I will get it as equation E1 is equal to minus omega into N1 into phi m into cos omega t. Okay. Now next what I am going to do is, in this equation I will substitute for omega. What is omega? Omega is equal to 2 into pi into f, that is where f is the frequency. Okay. So again I will get the next equation, minus 2 pi into f into N1 into phi m into cos omega t. Okay. Now here you can see there is a minus sign. So what is this minus cos omega t? Minus cos omega t. So sine 90 minus theta is cos theta. Sine 90 minus theta is cos theta. So what will be minus cos theta? You will just reverse it. So you will get sine theta minus 90. Okay, so applying that, I can rewrite this equation as E1 is, there is no minus now, E1 is equal to 2 pi f into N1 into phi m into, instead of minus cos omega t, I wrote sine omega t minus 90. Okay, so this is the expression for the induced EMF in the primary. Now I want to find the maximum value of this EMF. So maximum value means this particular term has to become 1. So if I take this particular term as 1, then I will get the maximum value. So I represent it as EM1, where E represents the induced EMF, 1 represents it is a primary, and M represents that it is a maximum value. So I get it as EM1 is equal to 2 pi f into N1 into phi m. That is the next expression. Okay, so I am writing this E1. So I will substitute this particular equation here. So I will get E1 is equal to E maximum into sine omega t minus 90. Okay, so now I got the expression for the induced EMF. Next what I am going to find is, I am going to find the RMS value of the EMF. So how will you find the RMS value? RMS value of any quantity is given by root mean square value is given by RMS value is equal to maximum value divided by root 2. So I already know the maximum value. What is the maximum value? Maximum value is given here. So I divide this by root 2. So RMS value is given by maximum value divided by root 2. Okay, so I will get 2 pi into f into N1 into phi m divided by root 2. So this is an RMS value for the primary induced EMF. Now what is this 2 pi divided by root 2? I will get it as 4.4. So see the expression. So I will get the RMS value of the induced EMF in the primary as 4.44 into f into N1 into phi m. Similarly, I will get the expression for E2 also. So both are the same, only difference is the turns. Okay. Now another very important thing, you wrote the equation of the flux as phi is equal to phi m sine omega t, right? This is how you wrote the expression for the flux. Now what about the expression of the EMF? Expression of the EMF E1 is given by, you can see here this particular expression, that is 2 pi f into n1 into phi m into sine omega t minus 90, right? Here you are getting some constant is there, then you are getting sine omega t minus 90. That means both E1 and E2 will lag the flux by 90 degrees. That is the meaning of this. If you consider the expression for both E1 and E2, you can see that there is a term sine omega t minus 90. Okay, which means E1 and E2 will be in phase, but both will lag the flux by 90 degrees. Okay, that also you have to keep in mind. Okay. Okay. So actually that is shown here. Here you can see the black wave or the black, this one indicates flux. So how can you represent induced EMF E1? E1 will be starting from this particular point. So here the angle is 90. That is after 90 degrees. That is if the flux starts from 0, then the induced EMF will start 90 degrees after the flux. Okay, that is based on the equation. That is what I explained now. Okay. Now let's discuss the next concept, that is about ideal transformers, because when we are studying about the analysis of transformers, first is start with the ideal transformer, which is very simple. Then slowly we will get into the complicated part, that is the actual transformer. So what is an ideal transformer? In the case of ideal transformer, we use some assumptions. Okay, the first assumption is primary and secondary winding have no resistance. No resistance means no losses. That is no I squared R loss, no resistive voltage drop. That is the first assumption. And the second assumption is we assume that there is no leakage flux. That means all the flux which is created is confined inside, that is it is confined within the core. So no flux is going out. Okay, that is the second assumption. First assumption, second assumption. Third one, we assume that there is no core loss, which means no eddy current loss, no hysteresis loss. Okay, these are the three basic assumptions. And then we assume that there is zero reluctance. That means there is no opposition to the flux and maximum flux will be generated. Okay. Now, if you consider the ideal transformer, we can say that the input power will be equal to the output power. Okay. And also, for an ideal transformer, since we are assuming that there is no voltage drop. So, suppose if you are giving an input voltage V1 will be equal to E1. Why? Because there is no voltage drop. Similarly, if E2 is the EMF induced in the secondary, the same induced EMF you will get it as the terminal voltage in the secondary. That is E2 is equal to V2, which means there are no voltage drop, which is impossible, right? Okay. Now next we will move on to the another very important concept of voltage transformation ratio. That is when you are representing or when you are analyzing a transformer, we use something called equivalent circuit. Okay, it is nothing, it is a simple representation of the transformer using several equations. Okay, so for that, sometimes if you consider that is, for example, sometimes this is the primary, this is the secondary winding. Sometimes some quantities which are here, say resistance or reactance, we want to transfer it into the primary or vice versa for simplicity, for calculation purpose. In that case, we need something called voltage transformation ratio. Now let's further consider the equations which we have learned so far, that is RMS value of induced EMF in the primary and RMS value of the induced EMF in the secondary, that is E1 and E2. Now let's divide these two equations. That is, this is the second equation and this is the first equation. Now let's divide this. So 2 by 1. So you will get these terms will cancel. So finally what we are getting is E2 by E1 is equal to N2 by N1. And this constant you call it as voltage transformation ratio. So K is equal to N2 by N1. And you should not get confused with another ratio called turns ratio. Sometimes in problems you can get something called turns ratio. turns ratio is given by N1 by N2, whereas transformation ratio is N2 by N1. Okay. Okay, fine. Now let's relate this equation with the terminal voltages, input voltage and output voltage. So as I told before, in the case of ideal transformer, since there is no voltage drop, this E1 will be equal to V1 and E2 will be equal to V2. So I can substitute in this equation that means E2 by E1 is equal to V2 by V1 is equal to N2 by N1 is equal to K. This is a very important relation. Now the value of K, that is for step up transformer, the output voltage will be more than the input, right? So the transformation ratio K will be greater than 1. For step down transformer, the output voltage will be less than the input voltage. So K will be less than 1. So it is everything is depending on the ratio, that is this K is taken as N2 by N1. That you should not get confused, N2 by N1. That is by changing the number of turns, you can change K, and by changing K, you can change the voltage. Okay. So that is the concept of voltage transformation ratio. Now let's see how we can relate it with the current also. So in the case of an ideal transformer, the output volt ampere means voltage into current, is equal to input volt ampere. So in the case of motor and generator, we denote the power rating in kilowatts, whereas in the case of transformer, we denote it as kilovolt ampere because it depends on the type of the load. So when you write the power equation for a transformer, it is not just VI, it is VI cos phi. Where cos phi or phi indicates the phase angle between the voltage and current depending on the type of the load. Okay, that is also a very important thing which you have to keep in mind. Okay, now from this equation, I can get the expression for I2 by I1. So what is I2 by I1 from here? Or I1 by I2? So I1 by I2 is equal to V2 by V1 is equal to this relation already we learned. This much I have explained already. And from this relation, you will get I1, I2 in terms of the other terms. So finally, what is the conclusion? I2 by I1 is equal to 1 by K, or I1 by I2 is equal to K. This is also very important. Now these transformation ratios are required when you are converting or when you are transferring quantities from one side to, that is primary to secondary or secondary to primary. That you will understand better when you are working on this equivalent circuit diagram. Okay. So what is transformation ratio K? It is, you can take it as N2 by N1, V2 by V1, E2 by E1, or I1 by I2. Okay. Next, we will see about impedance transformer in an ideal transformer. So already we learned, that is how we are relating this V1 is input and V2 output, how you relate it. That already we learned. That is V2 by V1 is equal to K. That means you can write V2 is equal to K into V1. Okay, K into V1. That means suppose if the voltage V2 in the secondary, if you want to transfer it into the primary, what you have to do? It is equivalent is you multiply into, or that is V2 is the voltage in the secondary and V1 is the input voltage. Now suppose if you want to transfer V2 to V1, what is the relation? You can connect it using this relation. Okay, so from this we will get the V1 is equal to V2 by K. V1 is equal to V2 by K. That is, if you know the secondary terminal voltage V2, divide it by K. Okay, that will be the same as transferring V2 to V1. Okay, now that we will work out a problem, then you will understand. Similarly, suppose if you want to transfer the voltage V1 in the primary to secondary, what you will do? How you will do that? That is, from this particular relation, we get K into V1 is equal to V2, right? So if you want to transfer V1 to V2, that is how you can make V1 equivalent to V2, because you are transferring from primary to secondary. You just multiply it by the transformation ratio K. If you know the voltage V1, multiply it by K. That means it is the same as transferring it from primary to secondary. Okay. Now let's see how you can determine the impedance transformation ratio in the case of an ideal transformer. That is, suppose this is the primary winding and this is a secondary winding, and there is an impedance here, and that is, I can represent it as Z2, and I want to transfer it to the primary. So how I can transfer it? That is, transferring is using the transformation ratio. So we will find, suppose if I know Z2, how can I convert or how can you transfer it into the primary? That is what we are going to see now. Okay. So in the case of secondary circuit, the expression for impedance is given by Z2 is equal to voltage by current, V2 by I2. Now we are going to use this particular relation. See here. Now first what we will do is we will find I2, I1 in terms of N1 and N2. This is the first expression. That is, instead of I2 by I1, you can write N1 by N2. Similarly, I'm taking this from this particular equation. Okay. Again, I can write voltage in terms of the number of turns. That is, V2 by V1 is equal to N2 by N1. This I can take it as second set of equations. Now from the same equation, I'm cross multiplying. That is, these two parts I'm cross multiplying. So I will get I1 V1 is equal to I2 V2. Okay. Now I'm proceeding with this particular equation. That is, I can take it as 3, equation number 3. Now from equation number 3, I'm writing the expression for V1 and I1. Okay. So from here, I will get V1 is equal to this expression. See here. Similarly, from here, I will get the expression for I1 also. So I'm writing all expression for V1 and I1 from equation number 3. So V1 I will get it as I2 by I1 into V2. Right. Now instead of this I2 by I1, I will take it from where? I will take it from this equation. I2 by I1 is equal to N1 by N2. See, I replaced I1 by I2 by I1 by N1 by N2. Similarly, I got the expression for I1 from here. I1 is equal to V2 by V1 into I2. Now again, I am going to replace V2 by V1. So what is V2 by V1 from here? It is N2 by N1. See, I got this expression. So basically, I got the expression for V1 and I1 in terms of what number of turns. Now what is impedance Z1? That primary winding impedance Z1 is equal to V1 by I1. So now I am going to divide this V1 by I1. So which all equations I will divide? This equation. I will take it as 4 and this as 5. So 4 by 5 I have to take. When I divide these two equations, you can see that you will get a term V2 by I2. So V2 by I2 already you know. What is V2 by I2? Impedance of the secondary, that is Z2. Now these two expressions N1 by N2, N2 by N1. When you multiply that, you will get Z1 is equal to N1 by N2 the whole squared into Z2. Now I'm going to rewrite it. This expression I'm going to rewrite it because we don't want N1 by N2. We want N2 by N1 because N2 by N1 is the transformation ratio K. So I will bring it to the denominator. So I will get this expression Z2 by N2 by N1 the whole squared. So what is N2 by N1 the whole squared? N2 by N1 the whole squared is equal to K squared. Okay. So it is basically Z2 by K squared. So what I am getting is Z1 is equivalent to Z2 divided by K squared, which is equal to Z2 dash. The meaning is, suppose we have an impedance Z2 in the secondary. Just listen to this. That is, suppose if we are having an impedance Z2 in the secondary, if you want to transfer it to the primary, first thing is you denote it by a dash, Z2 dash. That means it is a secondary impedance referred to primary. Then how can you get the value for that? You already know the value of Z2, right? Divide it by K squared. Divide it by K squared. Now let's take the other case. That is, suppose if I want to transfer impedance in the other way around. That is, now we are transferring secondary to primary, right? Now suppose primary to secondary I want to transfer. So how you will do that? That is, primary impedance is Z1. Now I want to refer it to secondary. So that means it will change to Z1 dash. Okay. So that will be equal to K squared into Z1. See the difference? So you should clearly understand how the impedance will change when you are transferring it from secondary to primary as well as primary to secondary. Suppose if you are referring from secondary to primary, that is, this is secondary to primary. This is a secondary impedance. When you refer it to the primary, you put it like this. Okay. So that will be equal to Z2 by K squared. Okay, so what is the meaning of this? 2 means it is a secondary impedance, dash means you are referring it to primary. Fine. Now Z1. Z1 means it is the impedance in the primary. Now we are going to refer it to the secondary. So I put it as like this. So that will be equal to K squared into Z2. See the difference? So when you draw the equivalent circuit, we have to consider all this. Now not only the impedance, the resistance will also be transferred like this. That is, suppose if R2 is the resistance in the secondary winding, when you refer it to the primary, it will be R2 dash, that is equal to R2 by K squared. Okay, again. Now suppose if X2 is the reactance in the secondary, if you want to transfer it to the primary, you put a dash, that is equal to X2 by K squared. Similarly, we can do it for the primary also, that is R1 dash and X2 dash. So what will be R1 dash? I'll write it here. R1 dash, that means primary referred to secondary, that will be equal to K squared into R1, and X1, that is the reactance of the primary winding when referred to secondary, will be equal to K squared into X1. So this is how you determine the values for the equivalent circuit. Okay, hope this is clear. Okay, so this transformation ratio is very, very important, and here I have represented like this. Here you can see this is Z2, this is in the secondary. Okay, now I am transferring it to the primary, it becomes Z2 dash, and this Z2 dash is given by Z2 by K squared. So you can see here secondary is shorted. See, secondary, I am transferring Z2 from here. Okay, so nothing is there in the secondary now. Okay,